It is the Al Travis Show. Lucky to have our next guest. When we talk farming, we get Jerry Groskreutz in. Jerry, how you doing?
Well, I'm doing really well, and I'm happy to report that my spring fever has been cured for a few days. It's supposed to start warming up again. Whew.
No, this is like this weird flu that's going around. My kid got it, got pretty sick, then he was better for 2 days, and right back at it again. It's coming. Your spring fever is going to hit you hard because we're going to get back to 50, and you're going to like, oh my goodness, I got to go.
Yep, I got to head out to the farm, and I'll find something to do.
Well, I have no doubt you will. Let's talk some big stories that are coming out. Maybe I don't understand. Well, I know I don't understand this. So let me ask you this. USDA released its trade and commodity price outlooks. It released its 10-year baseline projections starting in 2026. Sir, you can't tell me what spring is going to be like, and somebody's getting paid to come with a projection for 10 years from now?
Yep, that's called the USDA Outlook Forum.
Yeah.
They get together out in Washington, D.C., all the important people, and say, I have an idea, Al, because it's open to everybody. All the important people and the economists come and talk and explain what they're thinking. So how about the Al Travis Show? Pay for Jerry to go out to Washington, D.C., and then maybe I can talk to the USDA and educate them a little bit.
No one person could cover all this. You and I are going together.
There you go.
Yeah. They came up with some forecasting. Corn acres are going to fall 4.8 million acres to around from last year's 94 million acres. Some guy just pulling that rabbit out of a hat?
Let me see. How can I politely say this about some of the projections that they come up with? Not to mention just this year, but year number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I would almost, Al, put more weight in the long-range forecast from a weatherman than from the USDA, but it's an exercise you all go through. And let's just say they've had a history of making projections that, in my somewhat biased opinion, to be kind of bearish for, in other words, lots of acres and very high production and very low prices.
But that being said, they do stuff. This is the government. They throw that out there. Do the markets are okay with that? I mean, do you see a bump here and there? Does it scare farmers? Let's be honest. What we're worried about is the cost of beans and corn. So if they throw something out there and that makes this dip down to some ungodly number, it's only hurting people. What does the market do when they read something like that?
Let's just say that the market maybe doesn't pay quite as much attention to it as it used to, because they've been or had the reputation of being, let's just say, not real accurate. And I don't know how you could, because even like they came up with a projection that we're going to have, less bean acres this year or less corn acres. You know what? Mother Nature's going to have a whole lot to say about that in terms of what our weather's like during the planting season. It's early, and so there are so many unknowns that I think the market's kind of started to learn. Well, you look at it and say, maybe you get a response, but then again, maybe you don't, because there's so many unknowns. Nobody can come up with an accurate prediction.
Well, isn't that why you guys came up with the Farmer Bible, the Farmer's Almanac? Don't you just look ahead and find out exactly what the weather's going to be like in 20 years?
Yeah. Do you know what, at least for this, like the growing season coming up, or fall, you're looking at winter. You know what I put more stock in than our National Weather Service long-range forecast for a month or 2 or 3 out?
No.
Some of the old farmers' wise tales with like what wildlife is doing.
Oh, like really fuzzy caterpillars, it's going to be a tough winter, stuff like that, that good stuff.
And like how big the muskrat nests are on the wetlands. It's something about a survival instinct to those critters that they might have a sense. And I tend to put
more so than the USGA.
DA, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Let me ask you this, because the big news, I presume, in your livelihood this week was the Supreme Court, which how often does that come into Jerry's life? The Supreme Court knocks down tariffs as whatever way Trump did tariffs. And that was one day. And the next day he goes, this is great. I can do tariffs in a half a dozen other ways now. And he put it on there. What did that do for you all this week?
Well, you're a smart guy, Al, so maybe you could explain this to me.
Okay.
For over a year, we've been talking about tariffs and they were going to be hurting soybean prices, especially, right?
Yep.
Right. So we've had tariffs for almost a year now, and we got this agreement with China. They were going to buy 12 million metric ton of beans.
Mm-hmm.
And then here about 3 weeks ago, somewhere in there, President Trump put out a tweet that, well, it's not a tweet anymore. It's on X.
An X, yeah.
That China possibly agreed to purchasing 8 million more metric ton of beans, and it lit a fire under soybeans. Then the Supreme Court comes out and says how President Trump did the tariffs were illegal. So now we aren't going to have a tariff, and bean prices dropped 30 cents a bushel. I thought you said earlier tariffs were bad.
Well, and this is where you and I talked, 6 months ago when I was asking how tariffs were affecting you. You said prices were basically the same as they had been the year before. Now, you could argue, well, they'd probably be higher, or maybe. I mean, I don't know how you would know. But to sit here and say somehow it's horrible, what I don't understand, Jerry, these tariffs Trump put out weren't new. We have tariffs on a lot of countries on its own. And if I'm not mistaken, Canada has like a 400% tariff on dairy products from us going to them. Everyone else seems to use them but us, and it seemed to be okay by them.
Yeah, and it goes way back to World War II when Europe was destroyed, and all these things were set up they had unlimited access, so they could send as many cars and widgets and whatever they wanted in, but we couldn't export anything to them. And I've wondered long before President Trump, how is this fair? And are they subsidizing or, using trade barriers to help their industries at the expense of ours? So I started to see and found out how big some of these barriers were. And even goes to our border. Granted, we have to do something about immigration and how we're going to work all that out. But I wondered for years, all of the drugs flowing into this country, killing Americans. And I just kept thinking, why isn't anybody doing anything about this? Because my grandkids or my kids wouldn't get addicted to
whatever
and all these other things or get killed by fentanyl if it wasn't here in the first place.
I completely agree. I have to go to break because of time, but when I come back, I want to talk a little bit more about this and some more stuff that's out there. We'll talk about it with Jerry Groskreutz, our farmer extraordinaire, here on the Al Travis Show. We've got him, Jerry Groskreutz, farmer extraordinaire on the Al Travis Show. This is the weirdness that is this. You ask for what you get. We've had tariffs for years, like you say, World War II. The president, after getting told no, he couldn't have the tariffs he put on the Day of Independence or whatever he called it, he now announced a global 10% tariff and then up to 15%. So now instead of us deciding who gets really tariffed and who doesn't, everybody gets 15. You get 15, he gets 15. Doesn't matter. I don't know where you go from here. What did the beans do when this happened? I heard somewhere they spiked. Or was that last week?
Well, when the announcement came out on Friday, they dropped about 30 cents a bushel. They've come back a little bit since then. And it wasn't a surprise because reading the different newsletters, the agriculture newsletters that I get, the Van Trump Report, Professional Farmer, all of these, there was a good chance that the Supreme Court was going to say under the EF, whatever it was the easy way to do it, but it might not be legal. But there were 3 or 4 other ways that President Trump could do it, and it would be legal. It just wasn't quite as easy. So it was kind of like, I don't know what happens in like 150 days when he can take the tariffs off again. But, Al, I can get upset about it, or I can, we just have to deal with it. And I will say that in the last 3 weeks since President Trump put out that X about that China might buy a whole lot more beans. I've
Yeah.
got some new crop beans sold because we had a
There you
nice
go.
rally and my targets got hit. So sometimes volatility is a good thing in that you get an opportunity to get some sales on the books. And
Sure.
I want you to know, Al, I work 24 hours a day. I was marketing my beans at what time was it? Well, I was already up because I got the text message about 3:30 in the morning. My
Oh,
cell
really?
phone let me know that my price target had been hit, and I got a text. When you
Well,
have your targets in, and
sure.
all it's in the overnight session, the market went up and hit my target.
Oh, there you go. That how different is it than for
Oh,
you than when your parents you were doing this? I even like my granddad, who was the last farmer in the family. Basically, as you pulled the stuff out of the ground, you drove it to the elevator and you sold it for whatever it was that day. There wasn't a whole lot of futures trading in my grandfather's day, and here you are letting the late night markets ding your phone and tell you if you should sell or buy. That's fantastic.
isn't technology wonderful most of the time?
Yeah, I give you sometimes it actually is. I don't think you're probably going to this, but I wanted to bring it up because we are on in St. Cloud. The 59th annual Central Minnesota Farm Show is at the River's Edge Convention Center in St. Cloud. Free 2 days, runs 9 to 4 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been up there a couple different
Oh,
times over the last few years. I've gone up there. That's a great farm show. They got a lot of different speakers and things coming in. A
yeah.
big trade show,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it's a tax deduction because I'm a farmer too.
Always something there. Yeah, they expect 3,500 people from, obviously Minnesota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa. It's kind of a big deal. 150 exhibits, 270 booths are already sold. They're already sold out, so that's going to be kind of a big deal. It's kind of, I presume, a lot of the same folks that did the one in Mankato. I mean, it's kind of the same players,
kind
right?
of the same idea where
Okay.
you came over and saw the Minnesota Ag Expo. A couple
Yes.
of weeks later, remember we did the show. I was over there for Pork Congress. Well, that's the same type of thing, only specifically for the pork industry.
Yeah.
So that let the record show we are actually continuing our education, and maybe we're learning something, or maybe we're buying something we really need. So we are still working in the wintertime if we don't have livestock now. Just wanted to point that out to you.
That's fine, because you guys got money to burn. Can I throw the last thing out here? I read this. I was so mad at you. Did you see the Super Bowl ad? At the Ag Week. It was a 1-minute spot in the Super Bowl about Lay's last harvest commercial, where they kind of show farmers handing the torch down from one generation to the next generation. You guys got money to burn? You guys going to do that whether there's a Super Bowl ad or not? Now, Lay's put their name on it so they could write it off, but I thought that was quite possibly a little bit corny, Jer. Just a little bit.
Would have probably suspected I would have been in the same camp. I didn't specifically see that one.
Oh.
But yeah.
It was the life of a third-generation potato guy. It was built off him, so they're handing down the potatoes to the next. It was cute, but I don't know if it makes a weeny bit of difference in the world when it comes to, well, maybe Lay's going to sell some taters.
What you were trying to do was let the consumer know their brand was tied to a family farmer raising potatoes. I think that's what their objective was. And
those are millions of dollars of ads. I mean, it's like, okay, Lays, just jump on the Al Travis show. We'll do you just as fine.
There you go.
I gotta go, my friend. We're out of time, but I always appreciate you being on the program. I really do.
Behave yourself.
I'll do my best, Jerry. We'll get you back here next week. Jerry Groskreutz.
What worries me.
On the Al Travis show. More after this.